We all face a reckoning, whether you call it an awakening or just life. We all have to let go at some point of the things we've used to define ourselves, what we've become attached to. Some are more harder than others because we're so deeply identified with it. And that is what attachment is in my own definition. You will often hear spiritual thought leaders say attachment bears suffering. And the reason is that what we're attached to somehow defines us. So when we have to detach from it, we feel all of that because we feel that a part of our identity is in that. And that is where grief begins. The grief in awakening is when you begin to see the truth in everything. When you realize that everything that comes goes. And the things we've hold so dear are temporary. Who we thought we were, we're not. And in this unbecoming process, I met a lot of grief. What we are losing in the shedding are just borrowed, temporary. And a part of the grief that we feel is within the human aspect of it, which is like watching a movie and getting caught up in it, the feelings that you're feeling from watching the movie. But in the end, you realize it's just a movie. So you know the truth, but you still feel the grief, and it breaks the heart. It's the mind we sometimes relate to as the person, realizing the nothingness of existence. But the heart still carries the weight of everything that we've experienced. And so for me, sitting in this heaviness is a part of the unbecoming. I'm always talking about this unbecoming. And some of that grief, sometimes it's the ego grieving what it cannot have anymore. When the old disillusion self begins to fade, awakening dissolves the person aspect so we can live more as presence, is what I have realized. And the more we shed the layers, the more we become more of a presence, less of a person, because the person always identifies. Nothing ever truly grows unless it sheds. Nature shows us this. I see it in my own journey, and hopefully you're looking at your own journey and recognizing that in growth there is a natural detaching happening, a detachment. Every time we get comfortable, there is a shift. That's what growth is. You get to one aspect in your life, let's call it that, and then something shifts. And it takes us out of our comfort zone because now we have to trust life in what's unfamiliar. And sometimes we're more comfortable in what is familiar. So we'd rather stay there because we're afraid. And that's one of the tools that the ego mind, it comes up with excuses to keep us stuck. The ego would rather be miserable in the familiar, in what's familiar, than free in an unknown situation. Because even if the familiar situation is painful, it still feels safe. We would rather be a victim we recognize than a presence we don't. And that's the truth. I recognize this in my own path. Growth isn't what we pull in, it's what we let go of. And that's the detachment. No matter how far I go on my path, it's always saying detach. And in that detachment, you're letting go of who you thought you were, who you got comfortable with at that aspect in your life. This path leads to nowhere, isn't it? It doesn't lead anywhere. This path. Awakening is exactly that. You are the light that defines the path as you walk it. I realize that I am the path. This is the affirmation. This is the prayer. I am the path. And no matter how far I go, the message is always the same: detach. When they say the truth hurts, what hurts is when you realize the truth, when you awaken to the truth. It's that grief of what you thought was. That's the hurt. Because the heart once held that as what is. And this journey is always telling me to detach. And it's the path that leads nowhere, because somewhere is just another destination that the ego can also go. And in the human experience, we think that if I reach this period or this point, if I accomplish this in my life, I'm there, I'm home. And it doesn't matter your practice or your belief, I'm not asking you to change that, but when you look, any true path leads back to you. Not you, the person, but what's undying in all of us. When you realize the journey isn't about getting to a better version of ourselves, but about dissolving the one who wants to be better, you realize the path was always you. The path always led back to you, and without you, there is no path. And that's when here starts being home. This is why the journey is so quiet for me now. We aren't, it's not about finding God at the end of a long road or the road less traveled, as they normally say. That path is less traveled, but even in my phrasing of where the journey leads, it's not about arriving to a certain destination to find God, to find the absolute. You start to realize as you go through this process of unbecoming, you start to realize the God within. It's that simple. That is the journey. The journey always ends where it started. We think that we've traveled so far, but all we are doing is recognizing our true nature, and that is realizing the God within us. I thank you for listening. Love and gratitude. Love and gratitude.